Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is knacker. And all this week, we are looking at verbs that are more commonly used in British English versus American English. Now, I have said before, I am not an expert in British English. You can probably tell that by my accent. I have visited, but never lived in England or Great Britain. And to be honest, this is a new verb for me. It's not something I know I've heard it before. I wouldn't say I was an expert in it, but I like learning new things, and you probably do too since you're watching these videos. So let's learn a little more about the verb knacker. The most common way you'll hear this verb used is to mean to tire someone out. So, a verb probably more commonly used here in the United States would be exhaust. This particular activity makes me tired. Okay? A second way to use our verb of the day, knacker, is to mean to damage something. So you're bending something, you're breaking it, you're doing something that harms that particular object. You should know that knacker is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, you're going to add ing to form knackering. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, knacker, er, ends with a voiced R sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. Knackered, knackered. Okay? Now, I don't have any additional phrasal verbs for us to look at, but we will spend some time now looking at how to use our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Let's start with the simple past tense. Remember, you're going to use this verb tense to describe an action that was completed at some known time in the past. Sentences in the simple past tense might have a time signal, a word like yesterday, or maybe a phrase like 10 years ago to indicate that it's a known time. But not every simple past tense sentence is going to have that time signal. So the known time might be implied as part of a conversation or as part of a longer text. To make a sentence, an affirmative sentence or a positive sentence in the simple past tense, we're just going to use the ed form of the verb. This is true no matter what our subject is. Okay? Let's look at an example. He knackered the trash can when he backed over it in his car. Okay, so here's that second meaning: he damaged the trash can because his car ran over the top of it. If you want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, you're going to use did not and then the base verb. You might hear some people say didn't and then the base verb. Those have the exact same meanings. I always like to point that out because I think it can help with listening comprehension. So, either with the contraction or without, notice there is no ed ending on our verb here. So we're only doing that in the affirmative. An example in the negative would be we didn't knacker the car when we drove it. So here, we didn't damage the car. We didn't hit anything, no one hit us. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the simple past tense, use did, then place your subject, and then the base verb. So again, with our yes or no question, we're not using that ed form of the verb. You can see that in the example, did COVID-19 knacker her? Did it exhaust or tire her? And being tired is frequently a symptom, and sometimes a symptom that lasts for a long time for people who have contracted COVID-19. Now, let's take a look at the simple present. We use the simple present to talk about habits and routines. We also use it to discuss facts. And the key for the simple present here is to pay attention to your subject. If your subject is I, you, we, or they, then you're just going to use the base verb. So no ending, just keep the spelling exactly the same. But if your subject is he, she, or it, then you're going to add an S to the end of this verb. And you can see that in the example, school knackers the children. it tires them, it exhausts them. School, while it might apply again to many people, or this could apply to uh, many institutions, buildings, etc. We're referring to this as a singular subject. So it's like saying it, and that's why the S is there. Now let's look at making negative simple present sentences. Again, we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we're going to use do, not, and then the base verb. You might hear some people use the contraction don't and the base verb. Again, same meaning. If our subjects, though, are he, she, or it, then we're going to use does not and then the base verb, or doesn't and the base verb. So notice in the negative, we're not adding an S to the end of the verb in either form. Here's another example. Reading doesn't knacker me. It doesn't tire me, it doesn't exhaust me. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the simple present, start with do or does, whichever form matches your subject, and the subject is going to come next. Then use your base verb. So again, no S on the verb in a yes or no question. Does exercising knacker you? Do you get tired from exercising? Does it exhaust you? Okay. Now, let's spend a little time looking at words that are related to our verb knacker. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of the word. This has a really interesting meaning as a noun. Again, this was something I did not know until I started looking at it and reading a little bit. So, and again, this is something you're really only going to find in British English. All of the examples I found came from British newspapers, British magazines. So when knacker is used, it's referring to a person who buys old livestock with the purpose of killing the animals and then selling the meat or the hides. So you might hear someone say he's worked as a knacker for many years. Okay. A second and more probably commonly seen word is the adjective knackered. Okay, and it's used like tired or exhausted. Okay, so an example of this might be, I'm not going out tonight because I'm just too knackered. I'm just too tired. I'm too exhausted. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.